What rights were provided by the French Constitution? The Constitution began with a declaration of the rights of man and citizen. Rights such as the right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, equality before law were established. These rights were considered as natural rights which belonged to each human being by birth and could not be taken away. It was the duty of the government to protect these natural rights of a citizen. What do you know about the political clubs formed in France? Large sections of the population believed that the revolution had to be carried further, as the Constitution of 1791 had given the rights only to the richer section. So, political clubs became important for the people who wished to discuss government policies and plan their own forms of action. The most successful of these clubs were the Jacobean Club. Women too formed their own clubs to get the right to vote. What was a directory? Why was it removed from France? After the fall of Jacobean, a new constitution was formed which denied the right to vote to non proprietary men. It provided two elected legislative councils who appointed a directory, an executive made up of 5 members. However, the directors often clashed with the legislative councils and were finally dismissed. With this, political instability emerged in France, which gave rise to military dictator Napoleon Bonaparte. How did women suffer in France? Most of the women had to work for a living. They worked as laundresses or seamstresses, sold flowers, fruits, and vegetables, or were employed as domestic servants. They could not get education or job training. Working women also had to take care of their families, that is, to cook, fetch water, queue up for bread, and look after children. Their wages were also lower than men. Which laws were made to improve the status of women in the French society? In the beginning, the revolutionary government introduced laws to improve the lives of women. Schooling was made compulsory for all girls. Their fathers could no longer force them into marriage against their will. Divorce was made legal and could be applied for by both men and women. Women could now be trained for jobs, could become artists, or run small businesses. What was the immediate cause of French Revolution? A severe winter had meant a bad harvest. The price of bread rose. Often bakers exploited the situation and hoarded supplies. After spending long hours in long queues at the bakery, crowds of angry women stormed into the shops. At the same time, the king ordered troops to move into Paris, and on 14th July, the agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille. This turned out to be the immediate cause of the French Revolution. How did the French people ultimately get the right to vote to all citizens? In the summer of 1792, the Jacobins planned an insurrection of a large number of Parisians who were angered by the short supply of high prices of food. On the morning of August 10, they stormed the place of Tuileries, massacred the king's guards, and held the king hostage for several hours. Later, the assembly voted to imprison the royal family. Elections were held. From now on, all men of 21 years and above, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. What were the main causes of the French Revolution? Causes of the French Revolution: 1. Despotic rule of Louis XVI. He became the ruler of France in 1774. He had drained the financial resources of France in wars. For the cost of his regular extravagant expenses, he increased the taxes which were paid by the Third Estate. Second, division of French society. The French society was divided into three estates, first, second, and third estates, respectively. Among them, first and second estates had 10% of the total population, consisted of the clergy and nobles. They enjoyed all privileges. Rest of the 90% of the third estate, which paid all kinds of direct and indirect taxes. This kind of discrimination led to the revolution of the third estate. Third, rising prices. The population of France had increased This resulted into more demand of food grains, so the price of bread rose rapidly, which the poor could not afford to buy. So the gap between the rich and the poor widened. Fourth, inspiration of the philosophers. Philosophers like John Locke, Jean Jacques Rousseau, and Montesquieu propagated the idea of having a society where people would enjoy freedom, equal laws, and equal opportunities. Their ideas inspired the people of France to realize their dreams. Fifth, role of middle class. The 18th century witnessed the emergence of social groups termed the middle class, who earned their wealth through an expanding trade of the manufactured goods being exported. There were other professionals also, like lawyers, administrators, officials, who were all educated. They believed that no group in society should be privileged by birth. Describe the circumstances leading to the outbreak of revolutionary protest in France. The incidents leading to the outbreak of revolution were: 1. Meeting of the Estates General. On 5th May 1789, Louis XVI called for a meeting to propose new taxes. Representatives of all the three estates reached there, but members of the third estate had to stand at the back as they were not allowed any seat. Peasants, artisans, and women were denied entry to the assembly. Second, demand for universal adult franchise. Members of the third estate demanded the power for each member to vote. When the king rejected the demand, members of the third estate walked out of the assembly to protest. Third, meeting of the newly formed National Assembly. Since the percentage of the third estate was more, they considered themselves as spokesmen for the whole French nation. They assembled in an indoor tennis court of Versailles and declared themselves as the National Assembly. They believed in removing the feudal privileges of the noble and clergy. Fourth, revolt by peasants. The countryside rumors spread from village to village that their ripe crops would be destroyed by hired hands of lords of manors. Peasants in several districts seized hoes and attacked in resistance of their manors. They looted hoarded grain and burned down the documents containing records of manorial dues. Fifth, fall of Bastille prison. During the political turmoil, the French had experienced severe winters leading to bad harvest. It increased the price of harvest of the bread, which was hoarded in the market. Angry women attacked the shops. At the same time, the king ordered troops to move into Paris. On 14 July 1789, the agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille prison. Who formed the Jacobin Club? What measures had been taken to remove discrimination in the French society and former French Republic? The Jacobin Club was formed by Maximilien Robespierre. The measures taken or adopted were: formation of political clubs. Large sections of the society were convinced that the revolution had to be carried further, and the Constitution of 1791 gave political rights only to the richer section of the society. Political clubs became an important rallying point for people who wished to discuss government policies and plan their own forms of action. Members of the Jacobin Club. Its members were from less prosperous sections of the society. They included small shopkeepers, artisans like shoemakers, pastry cooks, watchmakers, and daily wage earners. A large number of members of the Jacobin Club decided to wear long, striped trousers to look apart. They also wore red caps to symbolize freedom. All citizens got the right to vote. On the morning of 10th August 1792, Jacobins stormed the palace of Tuileries, massacred the king's guards, and held the king's hostage for several hours. Later, they voted to imprison the royal family. Then the assembly declared that elections would be held to form government. All men above 21 years of age, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. Declaration of the France as a republic. The newly elected assembly was called Convention. On 21st September 1792, it abolished the monarchy and declared France as a republic.